You're listening to the Westminster-Canterbury Tales podcast, creating community to foster joy and well-being. Thanks for listening.
I'm Ellen Duckworth, for those of you who don't know me. I am the sales director here at Westminster-Canterbury on Chesapeake Bay, and I'm sitting here chatting with Lisa Smith. Lisa is the individual who chairs our Board of Trustees. She's also a retired telecommunications attorney. But the reason that Lisa is here is she recently had an experience with managing care and trying to find care for her parents who have been aging. And as most of you know, here at Westminster-Canterbury, we like to sit down with others to learn what their experiences have been and what kind of insights and advice they can offer us as a result of that. And it also helps us when we go out into the community to do some educational programs that we know what really matters to individuals as they find themselves facing these types of situations. So I know, Lisa, you and I have talked about doing this several times. I think you've got an incredible insight to what the experience was like. And then we can also talk about maybe advice on how to prevent it from happening in the future. Mm-hmm. So before we begin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your situation and what you were going through?
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I have been looking forward to sharing some insights and advice if I can. My parents had done a great job of preparing for retirement, and they did a lot of savings. So financially, they did a great job. What they really hadn't done was planned. What they had decided was they were going to stay in their house. It was a split level. They were about 6 hours away from me and my siblings in D.C., about 4 hours. And I remember we were planning my parents' 50th wedding anniversary party. And as we started speaking with my mom and asking her questions, there was a lot of repeating going on, a lot of long-term memories that she remembered, but short-term things that she didn't. And I am very fortunate to have two siblings who are attorneys and one who's a doctor. And as I said, my parents did a really wonderful job of preparing financially, but we didn't understand the storm that was getting ready to happen. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up, because of my experience here at Westminster, I was able to say, hey, you know, we can look for progressive care, but a lot of places insist that you be able to walk in, and you go through a series of tests to do that. And so my brother and sister found a place in Maryland, and you know, my father had great specific things that he wanted and didn't want, but we were able to satisfy them with an independent living experience. Mm-hmm. But as my mother's condition worsened, it became clear that my dad, even with care coming in, could not handle the situation. And fortunately for us, we had, you know, the availability of progressive care in this particular community. Well, we didn't really like it. It became a lot of, you know, making sure that mom was okay, going over all the time, and we were all in and out constantly. And it just got to the point where we decided no more. And part of the situation for us was that my dad was competent, and then it became a point where he just wasn't able to make decisions for the two of them. Once that happened, and I give a lot of credit to my doctor sister for this, and for my other sister who had power of attorney, we worked on getting her out of the facility. Mm-hmm. And brought her back to the independent living situation that they had with 24/7 care. Mm-hmm. It was quite expensive.
Yes.
And you know, we were very fortunate to be able to do that. What I think we hadn't really thought about was the personnel management.
Yes.
We thought you get people in, caregivers. We had good ones. We had some bad ones. We weeded through the process, and we came up with some really, really good ones. But that process of weeding through took a lot of time and energy. And I think people don't realize that that is what happens. You think, okay, mom and dad are home, this is great, they have 24/7 care, but some of that care can be pretty bad. And also the fact that there's just a dearth of caregivers. And certainly really good ones are hard to find. They are out there, and they're very compassionate and very capable. But you do come across some of the bad ones too. So for the last year of my mother's life, she was home. And we were so pleased that we were able to give that to her. She passed away last April, April of 23. And what we saw immediately with my dad was a decline mentally. And it became physical, and his requirements increased. And so we've had the same caregivers, I'm happy to say, working with him. But it all sounds so simple now in its description, but it was really, really hard because you don't really understand unless you see it what you're going to go through. And I will say, I'm very blessed. As I said, my siblings have been wonderful, and we're all on the same page, which is rare, as I hear. But it's been a much better experience because we've been in communication. We all try to help. And we put a lot of time and effort into working now with my dad and then with my mom. When she was alive. I'm sorry.
No, I was just say, you said something earlier, which I think is so important, which is the message that we try to get out to the general public, which is to please plan. Just
Yes.
have a conversation with your children or put something down in writing, but don't wait.
So, what I think my parents did was assume
Yes.
what nursing care would look like, and they decided they didn't want it. We didn't know any better.
Right.
So when I started here at Westminster, it was an epiphanous moment for me, and I was able to share it with them. And, in the end, I think we would have planned differently.
Sure.
And, they did not want to be a burden to their children,
Right.
and you often hear that. I was speaking to one woman who's a Westminster resident, and she said, the greatest gift she's able to give to her son is that she is here at
Right.
Westminster. I think my parents, in the end, really thought they were doing the right thing. But it has been an educational experience for me and my siblings. And I am always talking to friends who are going through the same thing. And I keep saying, just plan. You don't have to make a decision right this very moment.
Right.
Just go out and take a look and see what's out there, because there's so many different communities. There's so many different options. They're not all great. Westminster is great, but they're not all great, but that's part of the educational experience for you as a person who is going to be planning. And I feel as though when you get that amount of information, it's just like an investment, right? You go out and you research investments. You don't just plop your money down. It'll take time, but that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
That's why you start early.
Start
but,
early.
I have to say, society is very different than what it was, even 10 years ago, where a lot of the families stayed in one city. Maybe they weren't quite so spread out. It was a little bit easier, I think, to maybe secure a personal companion. You might be a friend of the family that could come in and help. And things are just very different now. We don't live in the same world. And so people are relying more and more on outside assistance. And you want to make sure you understand what the business models are, what the cost is, and what your options are.
In most instances, I find with my friends, as I speak with them, they all have to rely on outside people, right? Even if parents are home, they have to rely on somebody coming in. And you want eyeballs. I spend a great deal of time going up to see my dad, as does my sister. My brother and sister are in and out. They're not far from him. But you need people to know that somebody is watching.
Right.
And, we've been in situations where my dad has been on the phone with somebody that he shouldn't. I mean, we all know the parade of horribles, but it's because we were there and we were able to rectify the situation and prevent some of the things that have been happening. But it does take a lot of time, no matter whether your parents are at home or you're at home, or you have somebody who's in a community like a Westminster.
What advice would you give someone or a family as they find themselves starting to go down that journey?
All I can say is the more knowledge you have, the better off you are. And so, part of that planning process is researching. And if you have enough research and you can feel as though, okay, I understand what's going to happen, it'll ease your mind. It will ease your parents' minds. It doesn't necessarily get rid of all the work that's involved, but at least you know that they're safe. And that's the most important thing, that they're safe, they're well cared for, and that there are people around them that will care for them in the way that you hope that you would be able to do it if you're not able. For my siblings, they're working. They spend a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, I can go at this time. How can I navigate my workload? It's quite a bit. I had a daughter at home, and I couldn't just leave and go and help out at times. But we've managed to make it work. But all I can say is planning is everything. And planning, it means you go out and you figure out what's out there, what's available, how expensive it is, what it's going to mean once you make that decision. Because people think, oh, okay, mom and dad are in a safe place and it's fine. But there are doctor's appointments, and then there are more and more doctor's appointments. And you're aging at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so you're having more things that you have to go and do, more doctor's appointments. So all I can say is I can't emphasize enough how much planning and how important that is.
Thank you so much. You've really given us a lot of great advice, Lisa. I so appreciate your willingness to share your personal experience as well. And also to thank you for serving our community and being the chair on our Board of Trustees. But you've got great personal experience, and some of the things that you brought up I think are so important. It's not just about planning. It is about getting the right education, asking the right questions, and understanding what it's going to look like.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And can I put in a plug for Westminster?
Sure.
It's a great place. I've been on the board now. This is my 9th year.
Oh, wow.
And just seeing all the wonderful things and energy that the team puts into making sure that the twilight years for these residents are really great ones is very heartening. And so I thank you, and I thank the Westminster team and Ben Uncle. I think everybody does a great job. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Westminster-Canterbury Tales podcast. Thank you for listening.